Our agent just went through 6 documents with none of them agreeing with each other, and in under a minute, it built a complete case timeline, flagged every contradiction automatically, and caught that the cleaning crew mopped that floor 3 minutes before our client walked in. Nobody manually found that. The system inferred it by cross-referencing a batch log and a witness statement at the same time. That's what a pipeline does that a wrapper just can't. Most people building AI for legal work are just wrapping GPT in a form and calling it a product. What's up everyone, I'm Adhiraj, and today I'm showing you 3 tools built inside OpenClaw, which is a self-hosted local agent that actually holds up in production: a demand letter generator, a deposition summary tool, and a case chronology engine. Let's get into it. The first skill is a demand letter generator. Every attorney who does PI work understands exactly what a demand letter is and exactly how long it takes to write a good one from scratch. You give the facts of the situation either typed directly or as a file path, pointing to notes or an intake form, and it returns a fully structured formal demand letter as a Word document ready for attorney signature. The quality comes from how the prompts are written inside the build Python file. System prompt is one sentence, saying principal attorney drafting a demand letter with no emojis and a formal tone. The user prompt is what does the structural work, and this specifies our required sections, date, recipient block, statement of facts, etc. The model doesn't get to decide what goes in the letter. The prompt locks in the skeleton and it fills in the content from whatever facts you gave it. On top of that, our Python file is going to handle the word formatting directly, so the output looks like an actual legal document and not just text dropped into a Word file. Now let me show you a live run. I've got my Telegram opened here, which is directly linked to my OpenClaw agent. Now I'm just going to type in the facts. All right, so hit send. OpenClaw is matching it to the demand letter skill. It's going to run our build Python file and the whole chain, the GPT call, formatting, the word export. All this is going to happen in the background while we're looking at this chat window. All right, and so here is the file. Let's open this up. Hey guys, Adhiraj from the future here. Quick heads up, that completion notification you normally see isn't going to fire in this demo. I did catch it and fix it after the recording. It's fixed now, just keeping it real. Let's get back to the demo. Perfect. So we've got the date aligned at the top, recipient block below it. We got our body lays out the factual background, the whole injury history, economic damages, the 14-day deadline. It's all formatted very nicely in a Word document, and you would go in and basically update these to their actual values and change it up a little bit if you'd like, and then send it out to Maria Chen. Okay, so that literally took under 12 seconds. A junior associate doing this from scratch is looking at 30 to 45 minutes for our first draft. This is your first draft of 12 seconds, clean enough that most of the editing is just swapping in firm details and adjusting any case-specific language. Now let's move on to skill 2, and skill 2 is our deposition summary tool. Transcript review is a task that eats most paralegal time with the least upside. You're not doing legal analysis when you're reading a 200-page deposition. You're just doing extraction. You're going line by line looking for admissions, contradictions, and testimony that's going to hurt you at trial. That's a task that needs to be automated. So this skill takes a transcript file, a PDF, or plain text. The skill description is just one line, summarize a transcript with precise citations. That's really all OpenClaw needs. Everything else is going to live in our build Python file. We're in our build Python file, and we have a system prompt and a user prompt here. System prompt includes senior litigation attorney, analytic summary with no emojis. And then we have our user prompt, which is going to enforce our 6 sections: executive summary, key testimony, admissions, contradictions, damaging testimony, and recommended follow-up. Also, we're going to have mandatory page and line citations throughout. Citations aren't optional, but I hard-coded them into the prompt structure because a summary without them is quite literally useless in litigation. You need to be able to go back to the exact line. Now, while it runs, you'd see the 3 process log lines in the terminal, which are ingesting the transcript, indexing testimony, and synthesizing, and then it would print completed and the output path. Agent's then going to fire back in Telegram saying the high-stakes analysis is now complete with the file path. And that message is the instruction in the skill file, which is what tells the agent what to say when the build Python file exits. Now, before I run it, let's go through the transcript so you can see how the output maps back to the source. All right, so this is a short deposition of Sarah Jenkins with case number 2024 CV18789, taken March 15, 2024. It's 4 pages of Q&A. So page 1 is going to establish the basics. She was at Lux Fitness around 6 p.m. It's pouring rain outside. People were tracking in the water. Page 2 is where it gets a bit interesting. She's asking about wet floor signs, and she says she saw one yellow sign, but it was over by the water fountain, at least 15 feet from where she slipped. She also admits that right before she fell, she was checking her phone to see if her daughter had texted about picking her up. So she's acknowledging the sign existed and acknowledging that she was distracted. Both of those are going to matter. Page 3 covers the fall itself. She was in immediate pain, couldn't move her left leg, and heard a pop in her hip. Then a trainer named Mike comes over and says, and this is a direct quote, "I told them to mop that up 10 minutes ago." That's a prior knowledge of the hazard coming out of a staff member's mouth unprompted. Page 4 is the prior injury section. She had hip surgery in 2019. She says it was minor, and she says she was 100% recovered, only doing annual checkups. Then in the same breath, she says she can't work at all now because of the fracture and it's ruined her career as a physical therapist assistant. That tension between fully recovered and career-ending injury on the same page is exactly the kind of thing that's brutal on cross. And that's the input. Let's actually go ahead and run this. Now I've got Telegram open back up, and let's test this out. So summarize the deposition for Sarah Jenkins, and I've pasted in the file path to the actual file. It says it's already complete. I was actually testing this out earlier, so that's probably why. Let me just ask it to confirm the path. It's not going to find it because I deleted it. So let's just have it generated again. There we go. It completed it again. Let's open this up. Awesome. All right, so I've got our deposition on the left side and our output on the right side. We got our executive summary at the top. Deponent is Sarah Jenkins. Date is March 15, 2024. Overall assessment is damaging. And you can see why just from the transcript, the staff admission, the phone distraction, and the prior injury. There's a lot working against a clean plaintiff narrative over here. Now, without the physical line numbers in the text file, the model was essentially guessing based on paragraph breaks. In your real deposition, you probably have line numbers. And so our key testimony section cites 7 specific moments by page and line. Then we have our admission section, which pulls 3 this time. So she acknowledged seeing the wet floor sign. She admitted she was distracted by her phone at the moment of the fall. And she confirmed the prior hip surgery, even though it was characterized as minor. Third one matters because it opens up the door to causation arguments. The contradiction section catches the one that matters the most for cross. She claims she 100% recovered from the 2019 surgery at page 4, but then on the same page she says the current injury has ended her career as a physical therapist assistant. The model flagged that without being told to look for it. This damaging testimony covers the trainer Mike's statement, the prior knowledge of the hazard, and the phone distraction admission, which weakens her negligence claim against the gym. Now, in terms of the recommended follow-up, the maintenance protocols, and the wet floor signage procedures at Lux Fitness, and then we have our recommended follow-up procedures over here, which include the maintenance protocols and the wet floor signage procedures at Lux Fitness, records of any prior incidents or complaints about floor conditions, and the full history of her hip recovery and any ongoing treatment. So this was 3 to 4 hours of paralegal work done in under a minute, organized exactly the way an attorney needs it for trial prep. Now, the third skill is my favorite one, and it's the case chronology engine. This one has the most impressive output when you show it to someone who works in litigation. In a PI case, your evidence is never organized when it comes in. Medical records in one folder, police reports somewhere else, intake notes, witness statements, all of this has dates buried inside it and none of it is in order. Building a chronology traditionally means someone reads every document, extracts the relevant dates and events, and manually assembles a table. It has to be redone every time new evidence comes in. This skill takes a folder, scans every file in it, and produces a 4-column word table with the date, actor, event, source, with 2 flags, including critical turning points in blue and conflicts in red. The architecture behind it is worth explaining because it's doing something more sophisticated than the other 2 skills combined. So our build-up Python runs in 3 phases. Phase 1 fires concurrent extraction calls using a thread pool up to 5 documents at a time. Each one is hitting GPT and returning a JSON object with a list of raw events, and each one of these is tagged with date, actor, what happened, direct quote, and source file name. I'm using a cheaper model here because this is pure extraction. Speed matters and the task is more mechanical. Phase 2 takes everything that those calls returned, aggregates it, and then sends it to our GPT in a single synthesis call. That's the harder job. It normalizes date formats, deduplicates events that appear across multiple documents describing the same moment, sorts them chronologically, and applies those 2 flags I mentioned, critical and conflict. Detecting contradictions requires reasoning across documents simultaneously, and that's where our stronger model earns its cost. Phase 3 formats the final event list into the word table. So we have 2 models, 3 phases, the right tool for each job. Now, before I run it, let me show you what the input files are, or what's actually going to the folder, because this is the part that matters. So we have 6 documents, none of them telling the same story. First off is our employer incident report from the Global Logistics Corp. These are all super legit. They're all PDFs. And this is filed by Supervisor Mike on the day of the incident. So Mike lists the time as 2:45 p.m. He says the wet floor signs were posted at both ends of the corridor, describes the injury as a minor knee and leg strain, and notes no medical attention was requested. That's the employer's version of the events. Okay. Now let's move on to our second document, which is the intake notes. Now, our second document is the attorney intake notes taken the next morning. John says he fell at 2:30 p.m., not 2:45. He says the floor felt like ice. He says he didn't see any signs until Mike brought them out after he was already on the ground. Completely different time. Okay. Now, the third one is our Mercy Health ER clinical summary. John arrives at 7:15, 5 hours after the fall. The MRI shows an acute L4, L5 herniated disc with nerve root compression. Dr. Smith's note explicitly calls out that this is inconsistent with the minor leg strain in the employer's preliminary report. That's an ER physician on record flagging the discrepancy. All right, let's wrap this one up. Next, we have our police report. Officer Johnson arrives at 3:15 p.m. His observation, he observes that the surface is visibly wet. There's no warning signs within 10 feet of the fall location and a distinct sheen on the floor consistent with recently applied wax or chemical treatment. All right, now, fifth is the treating physician letter from Dr. Alan Vance, dated a month later. So he references the facility's own internal safety audit from June 1st, which found that the floor coating used that day was non-compliant with the ASTM friction standards. His conclusion was that the floor was a hazard regardless of whether the signs were even posted. Sixth one is our witness statement from Sarah Jenkins at the security desk. She didn't see the fall, she just heard the thump. But her statement includes the badge access lock for corridor 4. So the cleaning crew entered at 2:28 to mop. John badged in at 2:31, Mike badged in at 2:40, and Mike called security at 2:48 p.m. So we have these 6 documents, inconsistent times, totally contradictory accounts of the signs, and a batch log that anchors the whole sequence. All right, so I've got my Telegram open right here. Let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to tell it to build us a professional chronology. Can you build a professional chronology from the documents in this file path? And so it's going to go through all of those documents and build it for us. So at this point, 6 concurrent extraction calls are going to fire, synthesize, and format. And the output is going to appear right here in OpenClaw outputs. There we go. So it's building it for us. And it's done. So that was very fast. Let's open this up. Our agent just went through 6 documents with none of them agreeing with each other. And in under a minute, it built a complete case timeline, flagged every contradiction automatically, and caught that the cleaning crew mopped that floor 3 minutes before our client walked in. Nobody manually found that. The system inferred it by cross-referencing a batch log and a witness statement at the same time. That's what a pipeline does that a wrapper just can't. So here's the output. We have 22 events, chronologically sorted, deduplicated across 6 sources. We got our critical flags in blue. The fall at 2:30 p.m. is flagged as a turning point, and you can see it's sourced from both the intake notes and the ER summary simultaneously. The system recognized they were describing the same event and merged them. Then the ER visit at 7 p.m. gets flagged, the unbearable back pain 5 hours later, that kicks off the medical chain. Then Dr. Smith's surgical recommendation gets its own critical flag, the immediate surgical consultation and possible menectomy, which sits right below his findings note. And finally, June 1st, safety audit confirming the floor coating was non-compliant with ASTM friction standards, meaning the hazard existed regardless of whether the signs were posted. The conflict flags in red are where it gets useful for litigation. The employer's incident report gets 2 conflict entries back to back. John's injury was logged as a minor knee and leg strain, and Mike's claim. The signs were at both ends of the corridor. The police report gets a conflict flag for Officer Johnson's observation that no warning signs were within 10 feet of the fall location, directly contradicting Mike's account. The intake notes get their own conflict flag for John's statement that he didn't see any signs until Mike brought them out after the fall. And then Dr. Smith's medical findings get flagged as a conflict because of a severe L4, L5 herniation is explicitly inconsistent with the minor leg strain that the employer reported. 5 conflicted entries, all from the same core dispute about what actually happened in that corridor, surfaced automatically in just one pass. The badge log from the witness statement also shows that the cleaning crew entered corridor 4 at 2:28 p.m., and John badged in at 2:31 p.m., 3 minutes between the mop hitting the floor and him walking in. That's not stated as a conclusion in any single document, but it's an inference that the synthesis model drew by combining two data points from two separate sources. Building that manually from 6 files would take a paralegal most of their morning. Now, these tools don't replace attorneys or paralegals, but they just compress the time it takes to do the preparatory work so the humans in the room can spend their hours on the things that actually require judgment, like strategy, client relationships, negotiations, and the courtroom presence. Everything runs locally so the data never leaves the machine, which is the answer to the question every attorney is going to ask before they let any AI tool near client files. All of this is completely customizable. If your firm needs everything running on a local model with 0 API calls, leaving the building, it's absolutely doable, just a different model configuration. And the prompts, the document formatting, the output structure, all of it is simple code you can just open up and change. These are just templates now meant as finished products. The demand letter prompt I showed you is tuned for general PI work, but if you specialize in medical malpractice or workers' comp, you'd want to adjust the language and the output sections to match how you actually prep for those cases. If you want help adapting these to your specific workflow, just reach out. Link is going to be in the description. And if you want the code for all these 3 skills, that's going to be in my free school community. Drop a comment with what practice area you want me to build out next, and I'll see you in the next one.